Good afternoon. The podcast you're about to listen to covers some of the darkest topics possible. These topics are subject matter are solely provided by our guest, and the details were not prior knowledge to myself or Mike Gage. Allegations of corruption at any government level are not to be taken lightly, let alone from an agency that's sworn to protect us. Nor should the allegations be taken literal without sufficient evidence. This is a public forum designed for you, the listener, to form your own opinions. Audience discretion is advised. Well, good morning, Mike.
Good morning. Week number 9.
9. It is 9. Next week is our 10th episode anniversary.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Today's going to be a good day. So had a good weekend. It's been a good week. So yeah, we're going to spend this week putting out signs, and
it's time.
We've got a long list of people who have, along with the people that had signs last time during the primary, we probably added another 100 people that want signs for. They've already asked for signs and vehicle magnets. So yeah, it's going good.
Good, man. Speaking of that, I need a large banner for the interstate here, Bubba.
Yeah, we've got a little good view here for everybody driving down I-15. So
that'll do it. We're gonna need some window signs for the business in town too.
I can handle that.
You
got a bunch of them. So
gotta get our Mike Gage swag going.
Yeah, it's going to be a busy weekend, so looking forward to it. And again, thank you all for reaching out to me and asking for signs. It's making us feel pretty good going into this final run here.
It's a good sign, would you say?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a good sign.
There's my dad joke of the
day. And we got I think we're doing a special tonight at the Butte Irish have their home opener hockey game tonight. All right. So for those of you who've never seen my hockey skills, tonight would be a good night to come out, and because I think we're doing a shootout at the after the first period. So yeah, you're gonna see my hockey skills on display, which means I've never touched a hockey stick in my life. So this is going to be kind of interesting, but we'll make the best of it.
Yeah, no, you're in good company there. You don't want to see me on ice skates, but
well, I don't have to wear skates. Okay. I think I just got to try to shoot a goal.
Okay,
and
do some practice. Get a little street hockey set from the.
I didn't, and so I just figured I'll just let the crowd laugh at me. So I'm fine with that. I'm used to it. So.
And you're singing the national anthem tonight.
No. I think I heard that one of the officers' wives is singing the national anthem. I think it's Ashley Schmidt singing the national anthem tonight, and then I think tomorrow night Tim Montana is singing the national anthem. So they've got a game tonight and a game tomorrow night. So
awesome.
So it'll be pretty fun. Yeah,
it's a good weekend of events. How was your week? How's things on the trail?
Busy.
Yeah,
just staying busy. Work stuff, and then meetings with people, and I've had a couple of one-on-one meetings with some business owners and got their support for this week, and so yeah, it's going good. So we'll just keep moving along. That's all we can do at this point. Try to get our name out there and get introduced to some of the bigger names in Butte that need to know who we are. So that's what we've been working on.
Yeah, man. Well, this weekend you have an event.
Yeah,
we won't necessarily disclose it, but it's tomorrow, and that'll be a good event with some who's who of the county. Yeah,
get involved with some of the local ranchers and people like that. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that as well. And yeah, it's going to be a busy weekend. So
yeah, just to veer off the pleasantries a little bit, I was going to ask you if you follow any of that stuff going on in Aurora, Colorado.
I do. I've seen so many mixed reviews on what's going on. People saying it's not real. On the way down, they were saying that I believe that that same gang is causing problems in Dallas as well now, and so obviously there's again, where there's smoke, there's fire. We've seen the videos of it, so
I took it upon myself to do some fact checking because that's part of my role here. And with the ICE statistics for immigration, the FBI, they did take over that apartment complex with hostility and firearms in Aurora. They're also saturated in El Paso L.A., New York, Chicago, Philadelphia, and Miami, and now Aurora. And they've got over 5,000 members in the United States. They started out as a prison gang in Venezuela, and they came in through our unsecured borders, and now they're 5,000 strong. They have a hierarchy. It's very organized.
No, it usually is, and I have a feeling now that it's been made so public. There's going to be a lot of effort put into getting rid of them.
I like to think so, because they definitely are being brazen and bold in Colorado.
That was pretty bold. It doesn't get much bolder than
throwing people out of their homes at gunpoint and taking their stuff.
I didn't understand the guy with the high-powered rifle.
I don't think they're highly trained.
Yeah, that one confused me. I understood the pistols and the shotguns and things like that, but the high-powered rifle one kind of threw me for a loop on why you would be carrying that. But
it's almost game season.
Yeah, true. Yeah, maybe he's getting ready for elk season. Actually, I think bow season starts tomorrow. I think here in Montana. I think it's tomorrow. So I'm sure there'll be a lot of people hitting the woods out there trying to fill their tags. But so we got a special guest again today. I was reached out to probably a couple of weeks ago by somebody who had spoke to this guest that she was interested in coming on and telling her story. And again, last Sunday, another person reached out to me, and I said, well, give her my phone number, and if she's interested in coming on, she can reach out to me. Again, I didn't know much about her. I knew the name, and so that message, I got a message back saying she's going to be reaching out to you. And we ended up speaking probably 30 minutes later. I think I was doing chores when she called me. And so I called her back. And Kelly Thatcher, or Kelly Lewis, used to be Kelly Thatcher, who worked as a deputy coroner here for Butte-Silver Bow, reached out and said that she had worked some cases, and that she had some issues with things that she had seen or things that were being done at crime scenes that she wanted to talk about. And I tried to kind of tell her, this is not probably a good thing, that there will most likely be some repercussions if you agree to do this. And she made it clear to me that she felt obligated to the families and to the community to let them know that some of the things that were being done at crime scenes that she didn't agree with. And obviously she's the one that gets called out there when there's a dead body, and signs the death certificates, does the death notifications. I did forewarn yesterday. I spoke to the current coroner and just gave her a heads up that this conversation was going to be taking place today. And so, we're here this morning with Kelly. And again, I'll sit back and like I said, you guys know more what's going to be spoken about today, because my phone call with Kelly probably lasted 5 minutes, and then I had her reach out to you, and you guys took it from there. So it's going to be a learning, listening experience for me, and I'll jump in if I need to, and I'll let you guys take it from here.
Certainly, yeah, Mike, just jump in for follow-up questions, anything you want to add to it. So this is an open public forum for discussion, and we're open to guests coming on and talking about whatever their experiences were, good, bad, or ugly. And that's their personal experience, their opinion, and they're sharing it with the listeners, the voters. So with that being said, without further ado, good morning, Kelly.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm doing well.
Excellent.
Thank you for having me on here.
Well, it's our pleasure. Our pleasure. We're looking forward to hearing what you have to say. So, you ready to do this?
I am ready to do this.
Not nervous, right?
Not at all.
Mike and I are 9 episode professionals.
Yeah, that says a lot, doesn't it?
After episode 10, we're getting accepted into the Spotify Hall of Fame, I hear.
That would be wonderful.
Yep, we're working
what
on our
you guys
speeches.
are doing is actually amazing.
Yeah, thank you. We're trying to get better. We definitely are. And then, here we are, episode 9, episode 10 coming up. So, I mean, we got our listener base is growing, and, people like you, guests like you that come and have a story to tell, that absolutely helps us. So thank you for this.
100%.
Preemptively. So that being said, tell us a little bit about Kelly.
I worked for, it was actually the county. The coroner's office does not work for the sheriff's department. We are supposed to collaborate and work together as a team. I do have a bachelor's of science, bachelor's of science in criminal justice, and I minored in computer forensics. I also attended mortuary science school and spotlighted extra classes for criminal investigations and death investigations. I actually wanted to be a mortician and ended up rolling a 4-wheeler and suffering from a traumatic brain injury before I could graduate. And so I just kept going to school and becoming more knowledgeable with updated stuff having to do with forensics. My daughter, too, is really interested in forensic anthropology. So it's kind of following in the basis of, I guess, loving the human body when a breath no longer exists. I'm also an Army vet. I was a 74 Delta, which I dealt with chemical, biological, radioactive, and nuclear warfares. Anything else that has to do with that doesn't matter because it's really not a resume builder per se.
Fair enough.
This is a delicate situation to speak about. I do want to make it clear that it's not for revenge. It's hopefully I can speak loud enough to let the community not ignore it anymore.
Yeah, sure. I mean, tell your story, and then people can decide on their own what they think of it, and where they would take it, or where they're thinking about taking it, or how they feel about embracing it, whether they believe it or not, right? So this is just your forum to say your side of the story. So, and that's great. So let's back that up just a tad here. So you were a kid and you wanted to be in the mortuary business.
Yes.
That's a very unusual direction for a kid, but I like it. That's cool. That's cool. Skipped over the astronaut and the and the doctor and went right to the. Were you an Addams Family fan growing
up? Actually, I was not. No. I really never got interested in it until I went to Miles Community College and played basketball. And my daughter's family, they were running the Stevenson's funeral home.
Okay,
and
so you got exposed to.
Yes,
okay, I see. There's
the
culprit. That's where the bug. When you got bit by the bug.
Yes.
The funeral bug. Hey, you know what? Somebody's got to do that.
100%.
1,000%. Somebody's got to do that. There's a pot for every lid and a lid for every pot. So I mean, you found yours for sure. So then you had an accident with the 4-wheeler, and then you felt like that was out for you. And then you started focusing on your degree, and that's the point where you decided to take the path into forensics, right?
Yes.
That's awesome. That's really awesome. That's awesome. And that was after the Army?
No, that was before the Army.
Before the Army, okay.
Yes.
Okay, excellent. And then how long after you graduated and then got out of the military did you take this job with Butte-Silver Bow?
I actually was living in Billings, and my mom got sick, and I was also in a long-distance relationship with who's now an ex-cop, and decided to move back to Butte so we can continue our relationship and so I can be there to help my mom.
Okay. What year was that?
That was in 2020.
Okay. Oh, so it was recent.
Yes.
Okay. Like 4 years.
Summer of 2020.
Yeah. Okay.
But with COVID and all that, it seems like way longer than that.
It does. Time definitely goes by quick, but yet feels like it takes forever at the same time. Okay, so then after you started working for the medical examiner's office here in 2020,
It was I actually got hired in October of 2020 and started in January of 2021.
And did you have a lot of, let's say, bodies to work with during that time? Did you have a lot of incidents?
At least I only got the corner truck on the weekends.
Okay.
I did do ride-alongs with Lori, who does an amazing job.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I was able to do it on my own, there was at least 1 to 2 Friday, Saturday, and Sunday on the days that I had the corner truck.
Okay. It's pretty consistent for a small town.
Yes.
Okay.
But it involved also if someone passes away at the hospital and it's less than 24 hours, although they're in physician's care, we still get called because it's less than 24 hours.
Right. So during that time, how did you interact frequently with the sheriff's police department with Butte?
Once they called the coroner on scene, an officer or a detective, depending on how the case was, would approach us, well, me, and give me information based on like the name, date of birth, social security number, and just kind of like a little background of what they see. It got to the point where I would ask them not to tell me what they see or give me their judgment on what they think the cause and manner of death is, because I noticed that I would go in there with prejudgment rather than actually finding out for myself what it was. And that really can screw with the body if you're listening to their opinions on what it is.
Now, when you were in college taking courses for this, forensic courses, was that something that you were taught then too, is don't go in there with preconceived notions from the officers on scene? So that's pretty much a gold standard for your industry, is that nobody's supposed to basically direct you on
because it poisons what you actually see, because you're listening to what they say. And also, like, I was taught by some of the best coroners in the nation, to every scene you go on to, it's a homicide until you can prove it's not.
Yeah, so those are the lenses you're looking at it through.
Yes.
How often did the officers on scene, when you went to a suspicious death, or any death for that matter, say, yep, they slipped on a banana peel, that's what happened? I mean, how often did you hear their opinion on that?
Almost every time.
Okay. And that became the norm.
Yes.
How was your relationship with those officers and professionally?
It depends on who it was. Basically, once they release the scene to me, if I'm in no dire need to have them stay there, they would ask if they can go. They would give me their piece of paper on what time they got there, the call, the CR number, and then they would leave. And then I would conduct my investigation, and we were supposed to collaborate. Hey, can I get your report? So then I can determine the cause and manner. This person's going to the crime lab, or they're not, but I still don't know. So can I get your guys' pictures, what you guys seen when you first arrived on scene? And that never happened.
So just a question. I know what would you say the relationship is between the coroner's office and the sheriff's department? Do they go hand in hand with each other right now, or is there some issues between those two departments getting along and letting each of them do their jobs the way they're supposed to be done?
There is no teamwork between the sheriff's office and the coroner's office. The cops, the law enforcement, they go off what they think it is. Basically, I was told one time by a detective that I'm there to notify the next of kin, ask them what funeral home they want to go to, and basically just ship the body. Everything after that was null and void, no matter how much contact I would try to have with them to get the reports or pictures. There was 2 times that 2 different officers gave me their reports or their pictures on a thumb drive.
So just going back to my prior experience in law enforcement, what we would do is when we would get to the scene of a body, if it was obviously dead, we didn't touch the body. I mean, we there were times that you'd feel for a pulse or whatever, and maybe the body would still be warm, and then you would start CPR or something like that. But if it was what we called an obvious, then we didn't touch the body. We waited for our next phone call was for the coroner, and we secured the room for the coroner, and then the coroner would come in. The coroner would then do what they need, do their investigation. A lot of times, the person would be face down, then the coroner would roll them over, check for entry wounds, anything like that, anything suspicious. And it was always up. We didn't do anything until the coroner told us to, what their investigation was. The coroner would do the inspection and then order the autopsy. Once the coroner was done, then we placed the body in a body bag, called the funeral home or whatever. The funeral home would come, and then we would meet the pathologist at the funeral home for their post, and which is we call it a post, but it's autopsy. And then we would put in on the autopsies. But yeah, it was the coroner who made all the determinations on what our next steps were. Mm-hmm. And sometimes, you'd find I don't know how it works here. Sometimes it would be a patient. We'd find a lot of medical bottle, medicine. Yeah. So a lot of times we'd reach out to the doctor who was prescribing all the meds and say, hey, this is what they found here. Is this something that you're comfortable with signing off on a death certificate, right, given a cause of death? So a lot of times, somebody would be morbidly obese, and something, and the doctor knew they had hypertension or something. Right. The doctor would say, yeah, I'll go ahead and sign off on the death certificate. Or, yeah, we knew this was going to come at some point. But that would be up to the coroner to decide. So does that work here, Kelly? Is that the same way it works here? Do you guys order autopsy on any unattended death, or all our unattended deaths? What we did were, and that means that unless they were hospice, unless they were in a medical facility, or the doctor would agree to sign off on the death certificate, anything else automatically got an autopsy, and the officers went. Is that how it's done here? Is it done differently, or?
We do contact the crime lab, and we are the ones that tell them what we see, our findings, and what they would want to do if they would want to do an autopsy. I believe by law, anybody under the age of 60 is supposed to get an autopsy in an unattended death, unless it is 100% noticeable that, like, say, suicide, that's what happened.
Even on a suicide, you guys, let's say, for instance, a hanging. Yeah. So you find somebody that it appears, right, that they hung themselves. Can you, as the coroner, say, yes, it appears it's suicide, and we're not going to do an autopsy, or
it's on the crime lab? It is actually the doctor who decides if that's the case.
Because once they remove the body and there's ligature marks on the neck from the hanging, that doesn't mean that they necessarily died of asphyxiation. They could have died from it could have been murder. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's happened.
Yes.
It's rare, but there's been cases where, it was thought to be suicide, but then after toxicology screens or further examining the body, they found other means of foul play. Mm-hmm. And then it was supposed to be masked in a hanging. So, and I think that was Mike's perspective on that too, is don't they investigate thoroughly every suicide, every unattended death, just to rule that out? I mean, there's a box to check there, because it's easy to hide a murder in a suicide.
100%. I heard it on 3 cases that I was on where, cut and dry suicide. Don't worry, cut and dry suicide. When one of the cases I did have, it was actually supposed to be a suicide, but it was not coached. What's that? What's the word I'm looking for? Assisted suicide, which is legal in Montana if the person has a terminal illness.
Let's back that up for a second. Okay. So can anybody in Montana assist with a suicide, or do you have to be a...
You have to be a physician.
A physician, okay. Good.
Yes,
okay.
And the person that you're assisting does have to have a terminal illness.
Okay. So this physician can. Okay. And that was like the Dr. Kevorkian case of 25 years ago.
Yes.
So you okay. Yeah. Well, I mean, this clearly, though, this hypothetical is not a terminally ill person. This is just a question that, do they follow up? Was that standard procedure that they follow up on every unattended death, or they just walk in and say suicide?
Yeah. And then I'm the one that sends my narrative to the crime lab. And a lot of the times, a detective or somebody from the law enforcement agency is actually present while they're doing the autopsy.
Wouldn't the officers or detective would be present on scene while you did your job, which was to extrapolate evidence and information and findings based on your initial impression when you walked into the scene, right? So there'd be a detective there the whole time while you were doing your job too?
That's what would happen in a perfect world. But no, I never, in any of my deaths that I encountered, was there a detective on scene.
Okay.
Just out of curiosity, because again, this is new, I'm hearing this for the first time, is how many deaths did you investigate in like that 5, 10, 15, 20, 30, 50, 100? What do you think?
I actually counted them last night, and it was 32.
Okay.
In what time frame, from 2020 to?
It was 2021 until I received the final termination in April of 2022. Three. What? No, 2021, and I have received the final in whatever a year and a half was. It was a year and a half.
So we'll do it. So 18 months.
23,
yeah.
So in 18 months, you had roughly 30 plus cases.
Yes.
And there was never a detective with you?
There was not.
Huh. What were they? Or what was there? Manpower? Were they on other, calls? A cruise? Hair salon? Anything?
Your questions is good as mine. You know just about as much as I do.
Okay. Yeah, because Mike, you're the law enforcement expert here. Wouldn't that be the norm in that field?
Well, if there's anything suspicious at all, I mean, we would always call for a detective right away.
Right away, right.
I mean, that was our first call. I mean, but there were obviously some that weren't suspicious,
right?
That you could, but we were in the room. Whoever officer's case it was, if it was just a regular unattended death or we were in the room with the coroner or standing right outside the room. Actually, we would actually be photographing what the coroner was doing. So when the coroner rolled the body, we were taking pictures of that, so we would have it,
for evidence preservation.
Right. I don't know
who touched what.
Right. I can't imagine. Never in a million years would we leave the coroner by themselves.
Yeah. It's the detective's scene until it's cleared.
That
belongs to them.
Even if it's a patrolman, we would never leave the coroner.
No, you don't leave the house
out of eyesight. I mean,
yeah,
that's
part of the checks and balances.
Yeah, I don't understand. I mean, that's hard for me to believe that they wouldn't be there, or that they would go walk out of the house or stand outside while the coroner was inside doing their investigation. That would, if that's happening, if that's what's happening, that will end immediately. That you will stay in the house. We have control of that house until that body's removed from the house. That's when we get rid of the house. It's law enforcement.
That's your scene.
Yeah.
Until it's cleared. Well, I mean, you think about all the stuff that we've heard and learned over the last few, months. So I guess, on the level, it would be hard to believe that happens.
Right.
But after knowing what we've learned over time, probably is true. Because there's been a lot of lackadaisical practices, let's say. And, I'll just chalk that up to the mystery box, I guess. But that would be, I believe it. And, there's more stories to be told here. And, there's been a lot of absentee, positions that should have been, followed through with by different levels of the law enforcement agency here. Like, this is your job. Where are you? Oh, it's Mother's Day. We'll get into that though. There's insufficiency. So I would imagine, Mike, there's some strength to this one.
Yeah, I think we'll go into the next story here. That this is one that I do know about. I knew about it when it happened. I didn't know to the extent of what happened. This is the one that Kelly told me on the phone last Sunday. Is an incident that it was highly publicized in Butte as a missing person up in the Highlands. Reported that somebody had walked away, and then I think it was a couple days before I don't remember the exact time frame, but it was a while before they called and reported that she was missing, whether it was a day or two or 12 hours. I don't remember, but Kelly will probably be able to figure this out. I just remember reading the articles and seeing it on the news. And then on Sunday, Kelly told me that she was the coroner on call that day, and that she was called out there to the scene, except she never got to the scene, and that the body was brought from the scene to Kelly.
That was nice of him.
Yeah, and that would be, Police 101 would say that never happens under any circumstance. I don't care how snowy it is. I don't care how cold it is. Mm-hmm. If you can get to the scene, you can get the coroner to the scene. If you can drive up to the scene to retrieve the body, then you can obviously get the coroner to the body.
Of course. Well, the body got up there somehow, so you can get up there the same way.
You're going to get up.
Whether you like it or not.
I can tell you in instances that, bodies that were found in the water or on rivers or things like that, we didn't touch the body. We didn't. We would get in boats, put the coroner. Once we found the body, put the coroner in a boat with us, and the coroner, we would take the coroner to the body. I have instances where the coroner standing in the river,
put on some waders
to get to the body to do his initial inspection of how the body's found and things like that. We would never in a million years tell the coroner, "Hey, you stay up river. We're going to go get the body and bring it back to you."
Right.
The only time something like that might happen is if the body was at the bottom of the lake or something. We had to use we can't take the coroner there, and have him. So our teams, our underwater teams would go in, and they had training on how to preserve the body. They would place plastic bags over the hands and things like that. So in theory, nothing would get disturbed as you brought the body to the surface, and then the coroner would be there to inspect the body, but yeah, it makes no sense.
This particular case, we'll call it the Highlands girl. She was in how much snow?
It snowed that night, so she was reporting missing on May 7th. And according to the one police report I got months later, they actually were here on the 5th of May. And they were trying to get back down to Dillon and wanted to take the old country roads, but we're heading east instead of coming west.
So there was a significant amount of snow on the ground by the time she was found then?
Yes, there was. So it actually dropped sub-zero temperatures, and that's when they decided to get Elkhorn involved with the drug dogs, the cadaver dogs, and being able to find her, because the previous night they couldn't find her with the drones and the search and rescue.
So, and Mike, this can go to you too, because obviously this is your wheelhouse. Her body being found in snow, that much snow that they couldn't even see her with drones. Wouldn't that be like in a sense, an ideal evidence preservation, because she's frozen? So if you cordon off the area for, stabilizing the scene for evidence preservation, bring in heaters and melt the snow away, anything that happened to her, whether she was assaulted, all that skin, blood, seminal fluid, anything that would have occurred, wouldn't that be meticulously preserved for a forensic lab?
Would be preserved in that cold of weather, yeah, because it's too cold for the body to decompose at those temperatures. So
Exactly.
So yeah, I mean, it's an ideal situation. It's an ideal situation for an investigation
because everything's
preserved.
There's no the elements aren't affecting her. Wildlife is not destroying evidence. Right. Yet instead of following the standard, there's a gold standard for that, they removed her body, and brought her down the mountain, potentially losing or cross-contaminating all that evidence.
Well, from what I understand, and is that they threw her in the bed of a pickup truck, or I could be wrong, so I'll let Kelly. I think they just put the body in the back of a personal pickup truck.
Was she in a body bag?
She was.
Okay.
And unfortunately, although there was a lot of snow, and now that I know this, after speaking with members of the search and rescue, her body was actually on the ground, but covered in logs, and there was a fire.
The logs that she was covered in were burned, or there was a fire near her?
There was a fire near her.
So somebody was keeping warm. They had a campfire. And then they covered her body.
You know, I can only go based off of what the search and rescue told me, because I was not allowed.
Did the search and rescue people put that in their report of how they found her?
I never seen the report. I just talked to him face to face.
And you never got to the scene. I wonder if the scene where her body was after it was removed was investigated for evidence.
To my understanding, it was not.
What did they rule, or what did they want? What did you rule, or your department rule, her cause of death? Let's unpack that a little bit.
When I took her to the care center, I actually contacted my supervisor, just in tears, bawling for the way that law enforcement handled this descendant. Deaths are just as special as somebody alive, especially when you are the person that has to tell their story, because they can't. My findings on her, I did not see any signs of hypothermia. My findings were the right side of her face looked like it was crushed, and to me, she was killed.
Now, you saw her in the body bag once the pickup truck arrived at your staging area, right?
I did not see her in the body bag. I just opened it to make sure it was her, and drove from the Highlands down to the care center, where I was able to take her out of the body bag and examine her.
So you once she got to you in your staging area, before you got to the care center, her body was never really out of your sight.
Yes.
Was she clothed when you first saw her?
She had on a male's, kind of like a flannel. She had on a sports bra and a black tank top that were pushed up around her neck. She was in male boxers and a pair of socks.
Okay, so she was somewhat exposed, yes, wearing clothes that necessarily wasn't hers.
Yes.
Potentially. Who knows?
Potentially, right? Yeah.
Okay. And then take us from there. I mean, you examined her. Did you see any other signs besides the smashed? You said the left side of the skull was smashed?
Her right side.
Right side, okay.
Yes.
Did you see any other signs of potential, bodily harm?
Yes, I did. On her right side of her breast, it either looked like a bite mark, hickey, or something like that. She did have
a hematoma, blood bruise.
The way that she was positioned when I received her, she was laying on her back in supine, and it honestly looked like her hands were in defensive mode to stop.
She was frozen.
Her mouth was barely open, and there was a stick with green leaves that were down her throat. She did have a little bit of dirt in her teeth. but coinciding with how treacherous that terrain is, walking up and down those, even if she fell, man, got a lot of dirt in her face. Her face was actually clean. There was a little bit of dirt on the inner rims of her mouth. After removing the undergarments, she did have lesions and scrapes on her shins, upper legs. What was found in the genital area, I'm not going to speak about, but it was hard. It was hard to actually know that this happened.
So there was signs of sexual assault or mutilation?
Yes, there was. And sodomy.
Okay. And did the medical examiner, the doctor, what did they think of these?
I'm unaware of that. I did my narrative. We have this website that we type everything onto and give our narrative to the medical examiner before they receive the descendant. And I go in full detail. I use the scientific words. I'm not trying to do that on here, but
you're a professional. Go ahead.
Yeah, with my narrative to obviously let them know that I was not allowed to see the scene, so I was unaware of the way that she was found, what position she was in, because when I did ask what position or how she was found, I got the reply of by cadaver dogs. And so I send it in, take her to the crime lab, and then just wait. It's 90 days by law that they have to come back with an autopsy report.
Did they do DNA?
I'm unaware.
What was the cause of death determined?
The cause of death determined was hypothermia and basically an overdose. It said intoxication of methamphetamine.
And nothing about the trauma to the head?
Nothing.
And the rest of the body?
With our crime lab, they do their findings, and then they give an objective at the very end on how they came up with these findings.
Anything in that objective discuss the potential sexual assault or?
No, it did not.
Any of the abrasions on the legs or?
No, it did not.
Okay.
It said a 30-year-old woman was reportedly walking through a creek and through a treacherous terrain and went missing in sub-zero temperatures.
So they're potentially chalking up the rest of that bodily harm as due to the terrain and the temperatures?
Yes, they did.
Okay.
Was there any way that, well, if she was dressed in boxers, the places that things were found, even if she had fallen or whatever, would have been pretty much impossible for those objects to have appeared in those bodily cavities. With your expertise, by a fall, they would have had to have been placed there, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. These are the things like I can almost guarantee you they are preparing a jail cell for you right now for hanging out with that. And I'm going to give you a good week before you have a new home.
Hey,
actually, Mike,
I've been under the gun in a Target for a long time.
In fairness, there's no room in the cell. So she'll get a bench.
I think they're going to find one for her.
Well, I mean, it's a public forum, open for public interpretation. We're not necessarily pointing fingers. We're just discussing an open topic of her findings, her opinions.
See, this is new to me. So, like I said, you may have known. I don't know if you knew these things with your phone call, but like I was not expecting that one to come out. I did.
There's more, and it's it's something that should be discussed. It's open for discussion, and this one, I think, Mike and I both have an extensive background in public service at different capacities, and we've seen a lot of stuff. But when you when you're putting the pieces of this together and you're unpacking the description of this, I think we both are a little, lack of words right now.
Well, I'm sitting here
trying to put all the pieces together here.
Right. This is a tough one.
It is.
And I know that I'm sure that people are going to listen to this will say, good God, that girl's crazy, or she's full of it, or but they hired her in this position,
and she served our country, and thank you for that.
And
proudly in the Army,
they gave her this job, so apparently they trusted her,
right?
And she wasn't crazy, or they wouldn't have given her the job. But now that's going to be, I just know this is what's going to happen, is that they're going to say, well, she's crazy, she's whatever. Well, then why would you give her a job that really is one of the most important jobs? It's, you're born into this world and then you die, and the last person that gets to, you get a birth certificate when you're born, and then the last thing you ever get with your name on it is your death certificate. And the person who's responsible for signing that and saying how your life came to an end, it's a pretty important job, and one that, you don't get to speak for yourself. Somebody else is telling the rest of the world, this is how you left this earth. And they obviously trusted Kelly
100%
in that position to make that determination.
Well, Kelly's track record kind of speaks for itself too. Let's not talk about where we are today and what she went through in that position and the emotional distress that was tacked on, right? Let's take through that the Department of Defense trusted Kelly and gave her a Delta clearance in the Army. She proudly served her country. She got her degree in college, bachelor's. Okay, she went through the discipline and the consistency to achieve that. And she got hired by the medical examiner. So there's a track record right there that the average Joe or Jane doesn't really get behind them when they have, let's say, instead of crazy, we'll use mental health issues, right? I mean, that's an achiever that doesn't have obstacles. So I there's merit there, right? I think that let's say, for instance, on the side of this is 100% true. You go to this scene. No, you can't go up on the mountain. We're bringing the body to you. I mean, hell, dude, the Boy Scouts tell you not to touch a body, for God's sakes, dude. You can watch TV shows now and learn this. You don't have to go to the police academy to know that. That was stupid on every. I don't care if it's snow and fireballs. Okay, you don't do that. You leave it. Secure the scene. If it's a blizzard, secure the scene. Drop a pin. Maybe get somebody in a place where they're safe and just babysit it until it clears, and then go out there. But you don't ever move that body. Okay, so they did. She probably felt, okay, well, they're not letting me do my job. I have to stage here. And then when you get the body, when you examine it and you see all these signs of trauma and forced assault, all these horrific things that you saw, and then in the end, it's supposed to be not suicide, it's supposed to be environmental conditions is what led to her death. That's got to be devastating to you. Like, wait a second. What about the head injury I saw? What about the penetration injuries I saw? What about the abrasions I saw? What about the hematoma on the right breast? What about all these things that are, and like Mike said, he brought up a great point. She's wearing boxer shorts. You could fall off of that mountain 3 times wearing boxer shorts. You're probably not going to have the organic matter inside of her cavities that they found. That's like a 1 in a million odd, right? So nobody's buying that was just an accident. And what was she doing up there, quote unquote, by herself in sub-zero temperatures? I mean, meth can make folks do a lot of things, but it made her travel from town 30 minutes outside of town all the way up a mountain.
With how many guys was she with? 2?
Yeah, she was with 2 males. One of them was
they
a boyfriend,
okay.
And supposedly the car had broken down,
okay.
And they ran out of food and water, and so the female and her boyfriend went one way, and the other male apparently went the other way to look for something to eat. No, something to eat and drink.
So he was heading to the gas station in Rocker to get a deli sandwich. Cool story. So they
and then moments later, the two males met back up at the car, and said female was lost in the forest. The male, who was her boyfriend, actually stopped a passerby to contact
nobody had a cell phone.
They did have cell phones.
Oh, they weren't no signal. They had SOS on it.
But the passerby could get an SOS.
Well, I mean, that could be because they maybe where they were passing by was a different location, but they should have had a signal too, right?
100%.
No, the people the gentleman that found her, he said it was some guys that found her. Were they the same group of men that were with her traveling that evening?
No, she wasn't. She was found by search and rescue. The cadaver dog.
Okay, yes. So cadaver dog. Okay.
Because
I misunderstood it then, because there were some people, I guess, or somebody that was with her that actually knew the trail to get back.
They claim that they didn't. They're actually from South Dakota. Her and her boyfriend, and then the other male who was with them is actually from Dillon.
So there was three men.
There was three of them, and they wouldn't know the back roads, but yet.
So they came off the mountain, got to somebody's cell phone, called in and said, "Hey, we were traveling to Dillon. The car broke down. We decided to hike up the mountain. Got lost. Can't find my girlfriend."
Yes. But we're in the car warm.
Okay, but they're in the car, but she's not.
Mm-hmm.
And all that was public information with the investigators, correct? I mean, that's not something that you just assume. That's not something that somebody told you. This is what did they call 911? And there's recordings of.
Yes, the passerby is the one that called 911
and said that this guy's girlfriend's missing in the mountain.
And he said that he thinks that they're on some sort of drugs or alcohol, under the influence of something, because he wasn't making sense.
Okay. I mean, it's probably a safe assumption if they're out there, in that weather, climbing the mountain. Now, from the roadway where their vehicle broke down to where her body was found, was that a significant do you know anything about that? As far as how far away that was, how far she may have traveled?
I do not. When I finally got the reports from the officers that were there, like I said, it was after the autopsy report had already been.
And wouldn't they travel as a group if they got out of the car? She'd go off on her own, and they'd go off their own way, and
just
stay together. By
their stories, is she drank creek water and then couldn't move, so that's why the boyfriend left her to go get help.
Creek water did that too.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll give you the runs, but I don't know that it'll paralyze you.
So the final death certificate says that was signed says hypothermia, correct?
And methamphetamine intoxication. So basically overdose. But I refused to sign the death certificate because I did not agree with it.
So you never signed that death certificate?
I never did, but my name's on there.
Okay, so how did your name get on the death certificate as being the coroner that says this is the cause of death? How did your name get put on the death certificate?
I'd like to know that question as well.
Is it typed or somebody physically signed
No, it's you go into
digital signature.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a digital
anybody
signature.
Can put that on there technically.
Mm-hmm.
Is this the only case that you've disagreed with the final ruling, or are there others?
There's one other main one that still affects me to this day. I think about it all the time, only because it's absolutely 100% wrong.
And this one's more, let's say, like, use your words, wrong than this last case we just discussed. It's more potentially negligent, let's say.
Yes, it's very negligent,
Okay.
unethical.
Okay.
Yes.
It's pretty unethical to carry the body off the mountain.
Well, I'm anxious to hear about it. So let's
yeah, if it's bigger, I mean, yeah, let's unpack this one. The floor is yours, Kelly.
All right, so I received a call. It was August 27th from dispatch that I was needed at a house that is a well-known trap house.
For the viewers that or listeners don't, what do you consider a trap house? What's that?
Trap house, whoever owns it, maybe somebody doesn't own it, is where people can go and do illicit drugs, drink, all of that. They all become little friends. Drugs are either could be sold there or whatnot, or it could just be a hangout for all of them to be able to get high without getting in trouble.
So there's lots of people that come in and out of this house.
Yes, there is.
High traffic place for criminal activity and, let's say, criminal socialization.
Yes.
It's like a club for, I get it. Continue.
Club for getting high.
Club for getting high and sharing stories.
When I had spoke to dispatch, they had told me to be prepared because the descendant looked like it was ready to explode. So it's obviously been there for a while.
This is a body that you found or that you were called to.
Yes, it was. And we have to be on scene within 10 minutes, which I was. And the time elapsed from when the actual people who live in this house called 911 to get the officers there. Once the officers got there, it was either 6 to 12 minutes, I can't remember the number right now, that they were on the scene before they contacted me. I get to the scene and there is about 7 officers there. They did have 2 FTOs and an FTO is a cop who just finished the academy and obviously needs to have supervision and has to pass that aspect of it before they can go out on their own. I got the name of this descendant and asked the officer who gave it to me what his date of birth and social security number was, and he did not have that. I asked the officer how he verified that this said person was who it was, and he said just from the people who are at the house. This guy lived there for the last few weeks, and that's how he knew it was him. I gathered all my stuff that I was going to need and headed towards the front door. I was met by a female and a male who reside in the house, and they started telling me their story. It didn't make sense. I mean, if their lips could have fell off their face, they would have chased it around the block. I got what they had to say before entering the house and going to where the actual body was. I do take pictures. I photograph everything from right when I walk in to all the way until I'm done.
So were you the first, had the officers already taken pictures of the body or do you know this?
I do not know this. As I was going up the stairs, I had one of the training officers say, "Here, can you take a picture of his face so we have it?" And that didn't sit with me well. How do you verify a person without even knowing what his face looks like? So I like to examine around the scenes to figure out who this person is before I actually start examining the body. When I opened the door to this scene, I expected it to just blow me away. It was said that the only way that they knew that he was dead upstairs was because they can smell dog feces, and there were no signs of that. When I opened the door, it was like a sweet smell, kind of. I have 2 diabetic sisters, and it was kind of more of like an insulin type of smell. It didn't blow me away. I looked at the descendant, and I thought it was an African-American male. that was sitting in the position it was. And then come to find out it was actually a blonde-haired, blue-eyed white male.
It was just because of the way the body had started decomposing.
So it had been there a while.
Yeah,
So
through
that much morbidity on the skin.
It was about 8 to 10 days just by the bloating. It was odd because there was no insects.
What time of year was this?
This was in August.
So it was warm.
In the second floor of a older home in Butte.
No air conditioning?
No air conditioning. When I got there, the window was open with fans, but you can tell that it was placed there because there is dust on the windows.
And not dust on the fans.
And you can tell that somebody had put the fan there
to minimize the odor.
Yes.
Was the fan was the fan blowing in, or was the fan blowing out? Like
the fan was blowing outwards
to get rid of the smell.
The smell out.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Still, I searched the room and could not find anything that determined that this is who the officers said it was. There was no wallet. There was no mail. There was no, even the clothes that were surrounding it would not have fit this person. He was supposed to be there for the last 2 weeks or however long he was living there. And it showed no signs besides a bunch of drug activity that was there. I mean, there was hypodermic needles. There was pill bottles that were open with medications. There was a lot that were cut up. I mean, there was a SNAP card that had somebody else's name on it. It had nothing to do with this descendant whatsoever.
So let's pause it for a second to kind of unpack a little bit of that for the listeners. Okay, so you got somebody that was allegedly there for how many days were you told before you came with your own determination?
They last seen him 2 days prior when he was going to work.
So 48 hours allegedly.
Yes.
But he was bloated, unrecognizable.
Yes.
All his vessels had ruptured, so his skin was basically darkened.
Yes.
Okay, so much to the effect that you couldn't tell the actual ethnicity of the person or race anymore. And they were in a bed or on the floor?
He was positioned in a office chair.
Okay.
Leaning up head first against the bed. To the right, his elbow was on like a man-made desk that, as his neck was positioned, like his chin was touching his chest.
Okay. So was there fluids in the chair from leakage from his body being bloated?
There was not a lot.
Okay. And you said there was no bugs in the room?
There was no insects.
Okay. And the smell was
not that
of a decay,
a decomposing body,
especially at that stage of decomposition. So what you're saying is you're thinking that the body was put there after the fact, already dead.
Yes, I do.
Okay, that's where I thought you were going with it. Okay, so that gets us caught up to where we are now. So go ahead and continue to take us for where you got on the scene. And you said you were noticing that there was government subsidy cards cut up. There was nothing in the room matched who the individual is supposed to be.
Yes.
Correct. Okay.
Would that be unusual, though, in a trap house? That would seem like that would
have a high turnover rate.
Yeah, with that many people coming and going, that would be.
It would, but with them saying that he had been living there, and the only reason, the last time that they seen him was 2 days prior when he was going to work, and what made him go upstairs to check on this individual was because they smelled dog feces.
And in your professional opinion, how long does it take a body to bloat that big in August?
If he was in that environment, it would have taken about 8 days
to get that bloated.
Yes.
Even in August without AC. Okay.
But if he went to work, did anybody go investigate, see if he was seen 2 days ago at work?
Punch the time card, any type of.
I am unaware.
Okay.
I'm going to assume no with the outcome of how this ended up. So it was really bothering me that I cannot identify this person. Who am I going to contact? How am I going to find out any more information about him? I actually had to massage very carefully a tattoo that I thought I saw on his left bicep. And I don't have a Facebook. I don't have anything like that. So after massaging this said arm, I had to contact somebody who did have a Facebook and verify that this tattoo, if she could find any pictures of this male with this tattoo on his left arm, which that's how I identified it was him.
Okay. And who is it supposed to be or not supposed to be?
I just didn't, the officer said it was this person based off a bunch of people who that were chasing their lips around the block. So I wasn't going to say it was him until I found something. Like,
did it turn out to be the person that they said it was?
Yes.
Okay. Now, being that this is not even a halfway house, this is a trap house. It's not organized or managed by the state or the local government. This is just a property that people go to and use drugs and behave poorly, we'll say. So there's a chance this guy didn't have a job, though, or did he have? I mean, that sounds like he wouldn't have dutiful employment if he's living there and abusing drugs, right? To that capacity.
But I never found any evidence that he
ever left. There. He just.
I had no evidence that he lived there.
So in the end, after all these facts are out, what's your thoughts on this? I mean, what's your determination? What's your chicken and egg findings here?
Well, here we go. So after being able to remove the body, I actually had to get a geriatric body bag to fit him in. This dude was about 6'3", 250 pounds, and I'm little. And I had the two training officers in there to help me with the plastic in case how I was going to lay him down gracefully, because it is a descendant, and cover him up before he exploded. And so once we were able to do that, I did take pictures of his face, and when he was positioned, I did crawl underneath him, and he did have, his chest was an open cavity. And then when I laid him down, it like everything sunk back in, because that's what the gases do.
His chest blew out already?
Yes.
At some point, okay.
Well, I'm hoping. Well, yeah. Yeah. On a gracious note, yes, I hope his chest just blew out.
Okay.
Had to call a funeral home. Nobody knew who this said person was, where his family was, where he was from. Nobody knew anything. And so called the funeral home to at least come get him, where we do at the care center, where I can do my further examination on him. Funeral home gets there, removes the body, and I go back up to grab the evidence, or what I see as basically suspicious pertaining to how this body was. Upon getting back up there, his body was covering an open safe. And in that open safe was just bricks of meth. I had to go out and let the officers who were still outside know that there was bricks of meth. Again, I had these two training officers in the room with me. Once I contacted them and told them not to touch anything because they wanted to start gathering the evidence.
Well, let's pause it there for a second to try to talk about this a little more descriptively for the listeners, right?
Okay.
So his body was sitting in a chair, slumped over a desk with his chin to his chest.
He was slumped over. It looked like he was pushed up against the
desk.
bed.
The bed.
No,
okay.
a bed,
okay.
And his arm was on the desk.
Okay, so it was really tight room then.
Yes.
Where was the safe positioned in all this?
It
where
was
the body is?
Underneath the desk, pushed back.
So it's a floor safe?
Yes.
Okay. And the floor safe, you saw the floor safe, it was open already, or?
It was open.
Okay. And it was describe how big this safe was.
It was just one of those fire ones that you can get from Walmart or whatnot. I'd say it was about 2 feet by 2 feet.
And it had meth putting
Suspected
kilos
meth,
in
yes.
there. Okay. And how full? I mean, it was just full to the top with it.
There was, I believe, 6.
Okay.
I ended up with 6 bricks.
You remember what the bricks looked like?
They were
wrapped in color.
No, they were wrapped in black.
Black bags.
No, electric tape.
Okay.
I never cut it open. It was just suspected.
Suspected it was some type of narcotic product or drug, illegal substance. What else was in there? Was there anything else in there?
When I came back in, there was a bag of what I suspected possible fentanyl pills, just because of the color and the markings on them.
They were plastic bag, Ziploc bag.
It was in
with tablets in other small bags.
They were all just in like a brand new sandwich bag.
Okay.
It doesn't look like they were even touched or moved around, because they do leave a residue on sandwich bags if it's being tossed and whatnot.
If it's open, it'll leave a powder, right?
Yeah, and that.
Were they prepackaged inside there for distribution type of scenario, or
no?
Okay, they were just wrapped up in there. And then before the body was still sitting there, and you saw that, or you saw it after the body was moved.
I knew the safe was open, and I seen the black, square things when the body was there, and once he was removed, that's when you could tell what they were.
And then that's at the point where the officers on scene wanted to start removing whatever those black bags or black bricks and the Ziploc bags were in the safe once the body was moved, right?
So they wanted to start removing it as soon as I said that.
Oh, while the body
found a lot of,
okay.
And the body was already out.
Which would be, in that case, the appropriate time to investigate to say if the body's gone.
Mm-hmm.
What did they do? They took the products out of there?
No, I was in the room. I let them know what was there. I'm the one who has to put it in our evidence bags, tape it up. I always put the time and date on where I remove it.
So you would remove the product. Okay,
yes.
You would remove the suspected drugs. Okay.
Yes, and then I was there for like.
So you're not just doing the forensics for the evidence on the body. You're doing the entire scene.
Yes.
For preservation of evidence. Okay.
Yes. Because once to my understanding, and everybody else's, once they release the scene to us, they got everything that they wanted and needed, so they release it to us. So everything that we get is.
So you took photographs of the drugs in the safe, or the suspected drugs.
Yes.
And then you tagged them and bagged them.
Yes.
Okay.
And I was there for 4.5 hours. I mean, I had somebody else's bodily fluids on me. I was hot. It was hot in there, and had contact my superior and got permission to go ahead and tape up the door with tape to be able to come back the next morning to finish.
Yeah.
As she gave me permission, taped it off, was coming down the stairs, and I mean, I have my hands full of suspected drugs and some of the descendant stuff, like a cell phone and anything that I thought pertained as evidence to get that out of there right away. And I come down the stairs, and there's about 15 people in this living room. A few of them have backpacks on, and I was like, how'd you guys get in here? Like, you guys aren't supposed to be in here. Here I am with all these drugs.
Was there not officers securing the scene at the door outside?
Well, there was officers there, but not.
They still let 15 strangers in with backpacks?
Yes, they did.
Where were the officers in correlation to this living room full of strangers?
So they have a front porch. Then you go down the stairs. There's a sidewalk. Obviously, you step up the curb. There's a street. That's where they were at.
They weren't anywhere near the front of the house then. They just were letting people come and go.
I mean, they were in the street in front of the house, but...
Right. They weren't stopping anybody.
No, they were not.
So let me jump in here real quick, because this is even blowing my mind more. So you're not just a coroner.
But before I even ask that question, what is your experience in, and maybe this is how it's done in Montana. I don't know. I seriously don't. But do you have any training in crime scene preservation or crime or gathering evidence? Is this what put on by the state, or is just something that you learned how to do in your training riding around with the coroner? Or
well, yeah, and I went to school. I actually
but if you hadn't gone to school, but if you hadn't gone to school for that, and somebody was hired today, because what you're doing is more crime scene investigation and gathering evidence, which is not, maybe it is your job, but I don't know where. I mean, that would be like if a police department had their own crime scene investigation team. That appears to me that was your job. If you're gathering the fentanyl, if you're gathering the methamphetamine, I mean, that would be something that a police officer would be doing. Why are you doing it? I don't get why is that your job to take? Do you have your own evidence room at the coroner's office, or do you use the same evidence room as the sheriff's department?
Yes, we did. And before I was actually terminated, they had Lori go up and remove everything the evidence out of there. So basically, I don't know the whole story behind it. I never asked questions, because when I do, I get the runaround or the none of my effing business sort of scenario. So the reason that it was removed, obviously the officers could not see it. There was the body there. They released the scene. So once I went down the stairs and told them, yes, I found drugs. Here's drugs. There's still more drugs upstairs. They will take it then.
Did they take the potential product that you found from you that moment, or did you put it in your van or lock it away in whatever?
Yeah, so I put it in the back of the coroner van, because I still have to document all this stuff. Mm-hmm. I still have to take pictures of it in with my signature, and basically before my guest releasing it, or
but you never turned it over to the officers or detectives on scene. Here's the drugs I found. I think what he was getting at is
out of the back.
A lot of departments and agencies have a van that says forensics on the side, and in that van would be somebody that would photograph bodies and would take drugs and weapons and whatever they found on scene. But they work for the department. They're not a separate agency for the county coroner. So this is something different that Butte-Silver Bow does, obviously.
Yes.
And it's not uncommon for them to color outside of the lines a little bit in the norm structure, unfortunately. And it's not an effective or efficient way of managing that or mitigating that, because now you have an evidence locker at the police station where officers get drugs and guns and whatever, and they lock it up there. But now you have a separate evidence hold somewhere else offsite at the coroner's office, it sounded like. So that's like the tale of two cities. You know, it doesn't make any responsible sense to do that. But, you know, I'm not necessarily completely surprised that did occur that way, because there's so many other things that happen in this department that make you scratch your head. So continue.
So they did end up taking all the drugs and sent 2 officers up to gather the rest, which they put in their own evidence bags. And it was actually the FTOs who were doing it. After I taped off the door and everything, I told the homeowners nobody else is allowed to go upstairs. It is still considered a scene. There was so much suspicious stuff after moving the body. I let them know about the blood splots that were, when I measured them, double my hand size.
Blood where? On the
floor.
Let's talk about the blood. I mean, on
the floor.
Was it bright red and then dried red? Was it black and deoxygenated like a morbidity blood?
It was a darker red, and it was not by the descendant.
Okay. Somewhere else in the room.
Yes.
Like how far? Well,
it was. It ended up being 2.5 feet away from where he was.
But what was his final cause of death?
His final cause of death was overdose.
Yeah, there's
Blood splatter.
It was just a pile of blood.
So or maybe he could have overdosed and fell and bled, and then somebody moved the body to. So I guess what you're saying is, at some point, something else happened in the room. Did you see any markings on him of where this blood could have come from?
He was so bloated that 100%, I don't even know how they said it was a drug overdose, because there's nothing there. All the organs have already deteriorated. Everything's gas. You wouldn't be able to tell. Even if you say you want to try to get brain matter, which lasts a little longer, you would not be able to determine drugs in this body.
Maybe they use the environment as a determination tool. He's in a drug house.
Mm-hmm.
He's a known drug user, potentially. I don't know. I'm just saying.
Who signed off on the death certificate?
So it takes 90 days. This was August 27th. Through the next couple months, I had the coroner truck almost all of September. Our other deputy coroner got married, and so my supervisor said that he was going to take it for the weekends in October to catch up, I guess, give me a break. However, that went down. And after that, I received a pre-termination letter.
Okay, so you never got the end result of the case. I'm guessing it had, and would it be safe to say that you would not have agreed to sign off on this as an overdose? Did you see something else that in that case that you believe there was foul play involved?
Yes, I would not have signed off on this. I actually kept in contact with the family because they were having a difficult time talking with the law enforcement. They wouldn't call them back. They wouldn't give them details. The funeral home was really good with supplying them with what was left, although they had confirmed that it wasn't even his. The family actually called me to let me know what the outcome of this case was. She actually sent me a picture of the autopsy report and also a picture of a toxicology report that they had sent some liquid or whatever from his body and got brain matter, and that was actually done in Oklahoma. And it really upsets me because my name was on both of them.
Wait, so you signed off on the...
I did not. And here's the catcher. On the death certificate, I had my name changed in vitals and everywhere as Kelly Lewis. So on the death certificate, it does say Kelly Lewis. For being in chain of custody with this evidence from to be able to send it to Oklahoma, it says Kelly Thatcher.
And that again was a digital signature. That was not a written signature with ink, correct?
Correct.
So somebody changed it in there.
So you were when this death certificate was actually signed, or when you weren't even you were.
I was in the process of being terminated,
so you didn't have anything to do with this case any longer.
No, once they started that process of termination, I couldn't even sign on to vitals. I couldn't sign on to the crime lab website that we would go to send our narratives. Like, I was blocked from everything.
Right, and that would be something that would typically happen. Right. So my question is then, how in the world did you sign a death certificate that you couldn't even log on the system
when your privileges have been suspended?
That's the thing. I did not sign it.
Well, I mean, that definitely collaborates the fact that you could, and it was the wrong name. That was your maiden name that was signed, that you stated that you never used Thatcher as your digital signature. It was always Lewis.
What does the family, what do they believe happened?
They believe the same as I. I actually pushed for them to sue for a wrongful death determination. And since everybody was getting the run around, I had told the family, well, my coroner's report's public. You want it? I will give it to you. You obviously, we take photographs and things of that nature. If you need those, I can give them to you. They told me that after dealing with the department here, that the snakes are too big and it's very shady, and they'd rather not even step foot in our community.
The family of the victim?
Yes.
Okay. Now, how long, this was towards the end of your career with that agency, and it was, I squeezed you a little bit when I was talking about, like, so you're telling me that you took evidence, drug evidence in your van, and then the detectives took it in their car, and they went, the same lot of drugs and evidence went to two different locations.
Yes.
Okay, so now I'll play devil's advocate and we squeeze the other side now. What's the motive here for this gentleman's death if it was foul, if you suspected foul play?
To me, so after all these, that year was weird because there was a lot of fentanyl overdoses.
Okay.
Our department received a $250,000 grant from the government. I believe it was $250,000. The fentanyl overdoses decreased after that.
Okay, so there's your motivation of. But what was this gentleman's role in that? Why? Let's say, alleged. Why kill him? What was his role in that? And why position him in that trap house at the desk in late stages of decomposition? And was it what kind of walk me through that? What's your theory on that, or your thoughts, or your belief?
So with the people that continue to call me or write me or whatever, there was another individual that was heavily involved for some reason, and it came to that it was him, his wife, and another female that actually went, after I had left the scene, went and took care of whatever else was upstairs. They cut out the carpet, they removed the beds, the sheets were gone, everything was rearranged. And one of the females said, if anybody comes up here, give them my number. They don't need to be snooping around. And I had to give the cell phone back to these individuals because they pay for it, which I've never had to do that before. But according to the officer who told me to, that they paid for it, it's theirs. No matter how much I fought.
Did you speak up and vocalize your opinion on this case?
I did. I talked to my superior about what was going on. She basically told me just because they F up their investigation, they're not going to F up ours.
Okay.
Help contact the crime lab with other findings or with other individuals that were calling. Let them know so they can make a better determine for obviously the cause and manner of this death.
So your theory behind all this is there was a $250,000 grant, so a $250,000 grant to help the fentanyl crisis after public health hazards hit a certain number of overdoses in Butte. Okay, so then once they get that money, rapidly thereafter, the overdoses stop. So your theory on this is it was perpetuated to put in lots of fentanyl on the street, probably stepped on with heroin or meth, so it gets a result of fatality immediately. Because fentanyl by itself takes more of abuse of it to kill you, but when you add a second agent to it, like heroin or meth, it only takes one dose and it kills you.
Even with alcohol.
So if it's stepped on with other products in it to get on the streets, was solely done by some entity, local, that wanted it to exacerbate overdoses so they could qualify for that money. So in a nutshell, you're saying, or potentially, that all this was perpetuated to get that $250,000 grant money.
I do.
And then that grant money comes in with tags on it, earmarks. It doesn't just come in a check to the sheriff's office or the city, or the courthouse or the chief executive. It comes in and it's got to show allocation trails to it. Where was it allocated to? Treatment programs, to adding more officers, to adding more help for community, to get more drug dogs. I mean, there's all these things you have to fill out paperwork to earmark it.
Yep.
It doesn't just go as petty cash, right? So
Yes.
It has to be tracked. So despite it still having those trails to it, obviously, I'm not saying that that theory is wrong, because there's certainly plenty of government officials from here to Washington, D.C. that know how to hide money. I mean, it's common knowledge, right? So obviously there's a workaround for it, but it does, just for the listeners, know that it does come with a trail. But there's people out there that have gotten really, really good at circumventing that trail, right? So, but that's your theory behind all the drug related deaths, was to get that $250,000.
I do.
Grant money. Okay. Wow. I mean, that's heavy. And it's very heavy. Mike?
I got nothing.
Yeah.
I don't. I don't. You don't want to believe it. I mean, I'm not saying she's wrong. I'm just saying it's hard to believe. I mean, she was the one dealing with it, and not us. Obviously, I know there's problems.
It's hard, man, because there's I'm right there with you. On one end of this thing, I'm saying no. I mean, I don't know, but then on the other end, they've done some really dumbass things that make you scratch your head. So it's kind of like guilty by ignorant association, so to speak. It's like, it's kind of like the boy who cries wolf. They've cried bad choices so many times. It's almost like, I kind of believe it. It's like, why would you take the body off the mountain?
Yeah. Have you talked to people about this? I mean, are there people that in the community that agree with you that this is what's going on, or is this? I guess is it only your opinion, or?
I mean, I'm pretty good with knowing what to say to who, what, where, when, why. There's not a lot of trust here on who you can talk to. And I did, once I got into this web without knowing, like, this is the stuff that I thought I'd only see on TV. But I was seeing it with my own eyes. And the unethical behavior on many occasions, especially as I'm trying to conduct my duties as the deputy coroner, it was so bizarre. I did speak to a lot of attorneys from around the state, 46 to be exact. I did speak with the JAG, and the JAG is judges that are in the military.
The Navy.
And showed them everything that I had as evidence and what wasn't being performed morally and ethically with what should have happened. And they're the ones that helped me confirm that there was this motive to get this money with these individuals.
Yeah. I mean, so you have motive, you have, cause, you have potentially people that work for this department that are willing to do it. Obviously, let's just play devil's advocate for a second. If they're willing to risk their career and their freedom, then obviously there was something in it for them, right? Obviously, you're not going to just do that out of good faith because you like your superior officer. You're not going to break 20 laws to do that, cover up murder, commit murder, evidence tampering, potential drug trafficking, because where did the drugs go when they go? These are all just hearsay, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not, again, that sound like a movie or a TV show.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, on the other side of that coin, TV shows and movies got their plot and their basically their layout for it from real life usually. So it's not like this is an impossibility. It's not. But what came towards you after this? Did you, if you went public with it, you talked to attorneys, you talked to labor boards, you talked to all these folks. I mean, did you get any threats? Did you get any shut up and go home? Did you get any you better nots? I mean, what happened?
Once I talked to my superior about it, on who I needed to talk to and what I needed to do, that's when I got fired.
Okay. And what was the grounds of that termination? What did they list it? Because we've heard stories from other folks that have been guests that we know what they've cited termination for them. What was your
there was 3 things that was on there. Was lying to an officer on why I went back to the house, contacting the crime lab more than I needed to, and basically the whole thing was I lied. That's all I did was
contacting the crime lab is a company policy issue. If you do it excessively.
Well, I don't think so. It was only twice when I was actually asking about.
You talking about the crime lab in Helena or the crime lab in Oklahoma, or which crime lab were you
here in
abusing your privileges at?
Here in
allegedly.
Here in
Butte.
No, Missoula.
Missoula, okay. Yes. Missoula's crime lab. And you went back to the scene. Was this the scene that you taped the door?
Yes.
You went back to finish your job, or did you go back repetitively after that?
No, actually, the next day when I was going to go back, I called the homeowners to let them know I was on my way, and they had informed me that individuals told them that I gave them permission to go ahead and clean it up because they did not want to see their best friend go out like that.
While the investigation was still pending?
Yes.
And so they were saying you gave them permission to cut your tape and go enter the room and clean up the rest of the evidence?
Yes. Okay. And so the homeowners let them do that because...
And let's talk about the tape real quick.
Hold on, because I got to interject on this one.
Jump in, Bubba.
Because if the investigation wasn't done, so I know what he's saying here. I'm playing in his. You would never release that scene and go back to it like that. I mean, if you weren't done,
if you're not done,
if you're not done, you're not done, and you don't take a chance of letting
evidence.
You don't come back the next day and let people in the house and just say you can't go in this room.
Yeah.
I mean, so that
100%.
That doesn't make any sense on why that was done.
And she's a professional; she knows not to do that.
So who? My question to you would be who, and if you made a mistake, if not, or if maybe this is common. I mean, that's okay. I mean, everybody makes mistakes, and maybe this was just common practice here. But who decided that it would be okay if you hadn't finished your investigation just to tape off the room, let all these drug addicts back into the house, and then that we could go back another day and finish our investigation? Because that.
So it was getting dark and there was no lights. And actually, I asked permission to do it because I was afraid to be there by myself. Once the cops left, and my experience with coming down with all those drugs in my hands, with all those people there, like I seriously was afraid to stay there by myself. So I don't have a gun.
So the cops left the scene completely before you were even done?
Yes.
There was not one officer, period, anywhere?
Is that typical? That you're still there and there's no officers on scene?
Well, usually they say, hey, we're going to take off. And
they don't stay the entire time you're there? No. Is that normal?
For
this department?
Yeah. If it's, if there was a time where I didn't feel safe, I'd be like, no, please wait.
Yeah, but wouldn't they standardly, just the gold standard, they stay while there's an investigation going? She's removing evidence. And she's not like,
they usually say, hey, do you need me anymore?
Are you using your department phone, or do you guys have a department phone, or are you using your personal cell phone?
It's the corner phone.
Okay, so the officers are, from what I understand, so if you're taking, you said an officer gave you his phone to take a picture of the descendant's face, that's his personal cell phone.
It is.
Because the officers they're not given phones here. When they're at crime scenes or whatever, they're using their personal cell phones to take pictures of this. So now we have these pictures that are stored in the cloud or wherever on the officer's cell phone.
They're still around.
So I'm guessing then that if this would go, anytime an incident like this would happen, that the officer wanted to provide pictures, the officer's cell phone could be subpoenaed for evidence.
It could.
And they actually do have cameras. When we take pictures for the court, we don't use the phone. We use a camera that has
it's a digital camera that will.
But this picture, you said he handed you his cell phone.
Yes.
So let's say he got rid of his cell phone because it's been a couple of years. Everybody gets a new phone. That photo still exists. You can burn the phone. You can blow the phone up. You can do
somewhere
whatever.
that
photo has a digital footprint that went to a database and backed up on a cloud. Whether that officer realizes it or not, that can't ever go away. So it can be found.
So I think that's probably one of the issues that I've heard about here as well. That the officers, because they have to use their personal cell phones, that all that phone can be subpoenaed for evidence,
which is why you wouldn't want to use your personal cell phone.
Well, I don't. Yeah,
makes no sense.
And because being a cop, being a firefighter, you send jokes back and forth. Now all of a sudden that officer's argument with their wife or their jokes between friends now becomes part of the evidence.
Right.
And there's probably a lot of things on there that that you don't want the court seeing, or could seriously hurt cases.
Right. It's just a terrible idea altogether.
But I'm glad you brought this up, because so after taking pictures and the camera goes back in the corner bag to the corner, I give it back to her on Sunday night, Monday morning, whatever it was. That following weekend, I get the corner vehicle, grab the bag, and automatically get called on a scene. There's no camera in there. So I call her and I was like, hey, where's the camera? She was like, just use the phone. And I was like, okay, I really don't want to. The camera obviously takes better pictures, get the lighting right. And she said that, well, the chip is corrupted. We have to get a new one.
Is that the SIM card?
Yeah.
Okay.
The memory card that they use. Apparently, it got corrupted and is now gone. There's no files on it. There's nothing.
Oh, so all the pictures you took of the investigation of what you took at the scene are gone.
Everything, yes.
Do you think that's what's wrong with the agency here? Is their SIM cards corrupt? Jesus Christ. Yeah, that's too perfect, isn't it?
It's like people trying to play the bad boys of Butte, but they're not as smart as they were back then. I'm not an idiot whatsoever. Like, I was so sick. It hit me. I felt like I had rocks on my chest all the time, because how do I explain that to somebody?
Well, it does. It doesn't help your story on the level of not having conversation with you to get to know you.
Mm-hmm.
On face value, it doesn't help, right?
100%.
Now there's a mysterious SIM card crisis, and that SIM card's probably been used for how long, right? I mean, it just up and went bad. I mean, but regardless whether that's an impossibility or not, what else came at you? Did you ever receive threats from anybody in the police department or the coroner's office or random strangers?
Not necessarily threats. I did have to get more surveillance around my house. I did put cameras in my car at the front and the back, just because I didn't think it would go to this extreme to get me to not be the deputy coroner.
What extreme did you experience that warrants cameras in your vehicle, surveillance at home, additional protections for yourself? Why do you feel you need that?
I felt like I needed them because obviously the trust was totally not there with law enforcement. If they can have this motivation to at a death, then they would have motivation for the stuff that I knew to try to get rid of me, basically to save their ass.
To your point and perspective on this is the law enforcement officers here were in on the whole picture, including the drugs that were found, or
yeah, because one of the people that were in my termination letter was a detective at the time who wanted me gone, although he was never on scene. He never ever tried to contact me to see what my coroner report was. Once I told my superior that I started figuring stuff out and this needs to get taken higher, he was basically spotlighting to get rid of me out of that position. Obviously, he's been there for a long time, and through stories, through my family and listening, it wouldn't surprise me that, there's obviously cartel, there's anything for a buck. Like, I even sent my mom a manila envelope folder with a flash drive and a bunch of other stuff that it says, and it's time-stamped and everything, if I disappear or end up dead, send this to everybody. Let the news know. Let everybody know. I don't care.
So in your experience, that's pretty powerful, by the way, to especially send your mom a preemptive envelope. And I understand, though. I mean, so it sounds like your experiences and interactions with this agency has literally made you feel like your life is in jeopardy.
Of course. I feel like I'm under the gun and targeted, even still to this day. With my husband, now an ex-cop, with everything that was going on, I asked his permission because I didn't want him to get retaliated against. And because he was a good cop, he was black and white. But that's another story that would take another 10 hours to talk about. We never discussed stuff, though. He wouldn't tell me anything. I would ask if he was okay in certain situations. Same with, I wouldn't tell him anything, just because I didn't want him to get retaliated against, because he is a good cop, and it shouldn't be their mistakes and whatnot that cost me my livelihood shouldn't affect his. And so I tried to hold it in with everything that I could, because obviously we still needed him to have a job.
Mm-hmm. How long was he with the department?
He was with the department for only 5 years.
Okay. And does he have anything to do with these cases we discussed today?
No, I was only on one case with him where he had to come to the care center to take pictures. That is all.
Okay. Other than that, he had nothing to do with these two?
No.
Okay. Well, that was a lot of heavy stuff today. That's for sure. Well, thank you for, coming here and telling your side of the story. It's a lot to unpack. Definitely is.
None of it was opinion. None of it was hearsay. It's what I experienced.
Mike, you got anything to jump on in here, Ed?
No. Again, Kelly, thank you for reaching out to us and telling your story. I almost wish I would have known what we were going to be talking about before we got here, because now I'm just so flabbergasted, I guess would be the word. I don't, obviously you don't. She was there. She saw what she saw and feels what she feels.
Yep.
And while you want to have faith in your law enforcement and believe that this stuff doesn't happen, we've seen many instances, from former officers and current officers that have been on this show that tell you, yes, it does happen, and yes, this is reason. It's reasonable to believe. I don't know. I mean, this one's a head scratcher, and I feel sorry for. I mean, I'm thankful Kelly came and told it. I feel sorry for her. I believe in my heart, based on what people have said, that she is going to face retaliation for this. I hope it's not to the degree that she feels that is possible. And I believe, I mean, you can hear it in her voice, you can see it, that she cares passionately about the victim when they're no longer here, and wants to be able to tell their story and how their life on earth ended. And that's a very difficult job to do. God love those people that are capable of doing it, because it can't be easy.
It's a tough gig.
And so I just this one's got me. I mean, this one's hard for me. I mean, it is. It's because again, you don't want to think that stuff goes on, yet here we are. And Kelly, thank you. We'll get ready for week 10. I don't know how we're going to top this one. And I almost don't. I need a break after this one. I mean, I just want
it's a lot to unpack.
I want to take the weekend and just think about it, and we'll pray for Kelly and her well-being, and this
you don't have to feel sorry for me, though. I was put in that position for a reason. Like, I feel, that everything happens for a reason, and I did.
Well, I mean, maybe your reason in this will bring to light what is the truth, and I back Mike 100% with this. We're not saying we don't believe you. That's a big one. I mean, there's 2 horrendous cases that resulted in death that look like, in the way that you presented it, was corruption, murder, sexual assault, drug trafficking, tampering with evidence, coercion. I mean, it could go on, and that's these 2 cases that we discussed today. Both have, why move the body from the mountain? Why cover up the assaults? Why come at you for going back to the crime scene? Why the drugs? Why the body that was in different stages of decomposition, but supposedly was seen walking around 48 hours before that? Why is the big question. So that's what, that goes out to the people listening, to use your own opinions of the why.
And so only Michael knows this. I'm assuming there's more stories. What the video camera didn't pick up was me hiding behind Kelly, giving Mike the sign to cut this off, because I just need I need to be able to digest what's been said today.
Certainly.
And I'm sure Kelly has a lot more stories, and this one we got to digest it, because it's a lot. It is a lot of information, and for people to listen to, and I'm already kind of got a sick feeling in my stomach based off of just those 2. I don't want to hear the rest of them. I just don't. I mean,
and those were really the 2 ones that we prior discussed. I mean, at the end of the day, whether I believe it or not, it's not relevant. I mean, there's folks out there that feel differently, that Kelly is in danger. So if you're in danger and it's legitimate, then I think there's merit to it, because if there's no merit to it, then you wouldn't be in danger, right? So I don't know if you are or you're not, but thank you for being here. God bless you and the path you're on with this, and I hope that things stay quiet, peaceful. Our heartfelt, warmest, sincere emotions and go out to the families of these, of these 2 victims, if they were indeed victims and not organically environmental and an overdose, right? I mean, so we don't know the truth, we don't. It's like, but that's for the listeners to decide. And you guys, you can post your comments and thoughts to Mike Gage for sheriff. The email will be attached to the upload for this podcast and on YouTube. And if you have any other questions or anything you want us to discuss in the next podcast, please, email your questions and we can talk about those too. That's it for me.
We'll see you next Friday.
We'll see you next Friday. Have a safe weekend and a good Friday. Take care, everybody. We're out.